Hello, everybody. I'm Jonathan from Boredom Sated.
I'm Boris from Board and Sated.
And today we are going to talk about one of the two new classes in the wonderful Pathfinder 2 book, Secrets of Magic. Yeah, sorry about that.
Yes.
So Secrets of Magic has a bunch of has the two new character classes. It has an enormous number of new spells, some of which are very cool. It has a couple of new spells types. It's got it's got spell caster type archetypes. It's got elemental spell casting. It's got some new magic items. It's got some fun stuff.
Yep.
However, the main thing that we want to talk about, at least right now, is the fact that they put in two classes that are classic classes from the Pathfinder 1. And the one we're going to talk about today is
The Magus.
the Magus.
Yes. So, if you play them in the past in first edition, the concept is the same. Yep. The one thing I really want to start that I sort of didn't like is for their key abilities is strength or dex when they need intelligence for the spell. I would probably make it one of the few, only classes to give him a choice of three because he would need intelligence for his spells, but I see why they did strength or dexterity.
Now,
it is a martial class.
now here's the thing. The main ability of the Magus, which we're going to get into, is called Spell Strike. The way that's going to work is you're going to make an attack roll with your weapon. The attack roll with your weapon needs to be done with either strength or dexterity based on how you play your character. The spell itself, for most circumstances, needs to be, just like the old Magus, needs to be one that has an attack roll. But you're not rolling that attack roll because the attack roll is put into your weapon.
Right.
Because of that, the one attack roll needs to be based on strength or dex, unless you're going to cast your spells without using your melee weapon, in which case, yes, you do need to use your secondary stat, I guess tertiary stat, really, if you're going to be playing this up front, because Constitution is pretty important.
Right.
Which is one of the issues that the old Magus had. You always had to go and in general, you always went dexterity and intelligence.
Right.
And in this case, you still kind of need to do the same thing. You still want to make sure that you've got your dexterity or your strength. There's reasons to go either way. And your spell casting is
intelligence.
Spells, so therefore it is based on intelligence. Now, It's got a couple of really cool things going for it. This is the first character class that you can actually play correctly as a caster or a melee character, because you are a master at the end of both.
Right.
Sadly, you do not get legendary caster, but there's a reason for that, and it's because, again, most of the time you're going to be casting your spells through your melee weapon, which means that your master in melee is what your actual attack roll will be, which is what everyone other than a fighter gets. So you are just as good of a martial character as a barbarian is. You cast some spells.
Right. No, I totally get it, and that's why I said I understand why they did it. But I think it would be interesting if they added intelligence to the key abilities, because it's an or. It's not like you would get two. You can choose, but this way at least you could choose the intelligence.
That's fair.
Yep. Hit points, they get 8 plus your constitution, so I'm a little bit weaker than your standard martial classes, but still not bad. Now, the other thing I was a bit perplexed is their saving throw. They gave train to reflex, but expert to fortitude, when dex could be a key ability. I would probably have switched those, but
that's a very fair point. You start expert in fortitude and in will, which makes sense. Yeah. Now, of course, the best part about this is that you are a spellcaster and you are trained in medium and light armor. So if you happen to want to go for that shield build, which we'll talk about, or the two-handed weapon build, you can go strength, medium armor, and still have a perfectly fine armor class.
Yep, definitely. You're also trained in simple, martial, and unarmed strikes at first level. You're trained in arcane spell attacks and trained in arcane spell DC and
So,
trained in perception. We keep on forgetting
yeah.
perception.
Well, I mean, the only reason to mention it is if you're better than trained, because everyone
Right.
starts at least trained
That's
in
true.
perception.
No, that's true.
So, this is where the Magus is different from everyone else. Now, first, again, your arcane spellcasting, your heightening spells works exactly the same way as your wizard spellcaster does. If you want to cast a higher level version of a spell, you memorize it at a higher level. However, this is where it gets different. As a Magus, you only ever maximize out at 4 total spell slots.
Right.
2 spell slots of your highest level and 2 spell slots of the level directly below you.
Right.
Those are your spell slots that you get. Also, this is the first caster that does not get 10th level spells. However, some of you are probably saying, wait a minute, I'm a Magus and I get 9th level spell slots? That's awesome! Because Magus is in 1st edition Pathfinder, of course, maxed out at 6th.
Yep. And it's not bad. You only get less than 4 up through 3rd. At 4th level on, you always have 4.
Yeah, at 4th level, you have 2 seconds, 2 firsts. Then at 5th, you have 2/3 and 2 seconds, so on and so forth. Now, also, you do still get 5 cantrips, and you can still cast those infinitely, so you still have those abilities. And also, at level 7, you get an ability that gives you a couple of extra spell slots of a few levels lower than your current spellcasting spell slot, and they are used for utility and buff spells, so that you can have all of your normal spells used for your damage stuff, and then you can, or if you want to go with something that's not damage based, you only have 4 spells, so you probably don't want to, but you might as well have something there that's not a damage spell, just in case you need that teleport, or I mean, it's a 9th level spell, so who knows? You might really just want to
take wish.
I don't know. There's a lot of possibilities.
Right.
And you get arcane spells, so you got an enormous number of choices. So that is the spell casting, and that is the main caveat for playing this class. You don't get anywhere near as many spells as you did in Pathfinder 1.
Right. Now, the one thing I do want to say is, because of the spell strike ability and because of how that works, it really forces you to probably take 2, maybe 3 out of the 5 cantrips to be specific spells.
Yeah, but at the same time, that's fine.
Yeah.
Having a couple.
I mean, it's not bad cantrips.
It's not like every other spellcaster has 2 of their 5 be offensive cantrips anyway. So you got to do the same thing. Oh my God, no! If your Magus is your main spellcaster in your party, you did something wrong to begin with.
Well, the party did something wrong.
Look. Yeah, party makeup is a video that we will not discuss because I don't want to. Anyway, we talked about it, but we need to go into the rules for Spell Strike. Spell Strike is a 2-action ability that does exactly what you think it does. You make an attack roll, and you combine it with the cast a spell attack roll, but the cast a spell must be an action that takes either 1 or 2. You can't do a 3-action attack roll or anything like that. And in the base version, you can take feats that change this. It must be a spell that has an attack roll. So as an example, you could, there's enormous numbers of ones available to you, but at level 1, if you really wanted to, you could do several cantrips like Acid Splash, and the damage from Acid Splash, and that will go through. So, and it keeps getting higher, and there are always attack roll spells, and if you didn't have a good one before, guess what, again, there's an enormous number of new spells in this book, and a lot of them are shaped specifically for the Magus.
Yep.
And the Summoner. But we'll get to that in another video.
Right.
So you use Spell Strike. It's 2 actions. You make a melee attack. You hit with the melee attack. You deal your damage. And also, you get the spell's damage. Now, this counts as 2 attacks to your multi-attack penalty. So if your 3rd action is to make an attack, you taking that -8 or -10, depending on what's going on with what kind of attack you're making.
Right. Also you have to take. You did mention you have to take an action to um, refocus or prepare another spell strike. Otherwise, you have to wait one round.
I did not mention that. However,
Yeah.
that was what I was leaving for you to mention, which
Right.
is specifically you have to, in order to reuse spell strike, you need to spend an action that has the concentrate action, doing
Right.
nothing else but allowing you to re-up your spell strike.
Or
Or-
cast
Go ahead.
Conflux, which is their focus spells.
Or cast a complex spell, and the complex spells you will automatically start with 1, depending on what kind of build you choose. And then, of course, just like everybody else, you can take feats to increase that number. And some of the conflux spells are very, very cool. We're not going to get into the exacts of the conflux spells here because it'll take too long. So we might as well just give you the basics, and if you really want to research it, you can go ahead and do so yourself.
Right.
But spell strike does not, you cannot redo your spell strike at all until you re-up this. The only other way for you to be able to redo spell strike, if I'm correct, is wait until the next day. Otherwise, you're done. You can't just do it the next round. You have to do something to re-up it. Otherwise, you just can't do it again.
Right. Now, the next aspect is their Arcane Cascade that they also get, which is a stance, and which allows you to keep some of the energy from the spell strike and release it to do 1 extra point of damage, 2 if you have weapon specialization, and 3 if you have greater weapon specialization, which the Magus does get.
Now, it is a stance, so it's got concentrate. It does take an action to be able to enter. But the cool thing is, of course, that it's a stance, so in general, it sticks around for a while.
Yeah. So with that, let's go over the hybrids studies, which is
just like every other class in this game. At level 1, generally, you are going to make some sort of choice for what kind of character build you want to do. In Magus, that's your hybrid study. There are 5 hybrid studies, and each one gives you a specific ability and gives you a specific conflux spell that gives you the ability to, again, re-up your spell strike.
Right.
What's the first one?
The first one is the Inexorable Iron. I personally, this is my favorite one because whenever you enter your Arcane Cascade stance, you get temporary hit points equal to your hit points to your level, half your level, every round. So that pretty much gives you DR against pretty much a first attack, equal to half your level.
Yeah, and as long as you're in your Arcane Cascade every round, not only are you doing that little bit of extra damage from Arcane Cascade, but you are also going to gain a little bit of DR. Well, it's temporary hit points.
Right.
You know how temporary hit points work. The other thing, of course, is that Inexorable Iron gives you the conflux spell Thunderous Strike. What Thunderous Strike does is it's a single attack that basically does a little attacks a person in front of you and also does a tiny amount of thunder damage to the people behind you.
Right.
Now, the main thing you need to remember is all of these are based on what weapon type you're going to use. Inexorable Iron, considering what it says, most likely means you got to be using a big two-handed weapon.
Yep.
So what's the second one?
The second one is the Laughing Shadow. Which when you enter your Arcane Cascade, you gain 5 foot in status bonus to your speed, or 10 foot if you are unarmored. Also, if you're as long as you have a free hand, so being the swashbuckler and nothing in that free hand, you do extra damage if the opponent is flat-footed. The extra damage is instead of the 3, it moves it up to 5. if you're specialized, greatest specialized has moved it up to 7. So it just does a little bit extra damage if the person is flat-footed and you have a free hand.
And you're in your stance.
Right.
So this is your monk version. This is your I'm going to run around with a one-handed sword and run around you laughing, which is, of course, the reason why it's called Laughing Shadow, because you're shadowing them while you're laughing at them. Or at least that would be my assumption as to their reason. The conflict spell is called Dimensional Assault. You can take a guess as to what Dimensional Assault does. Yes. You're probably going to be pretty close.
Yep.
Number 3,
Sparkling Targe. So this is the one that is more of a shield in line with working as a champion. If you raise your shield, can block eventually Dragon Breath or Magic Missile, which is really cool, I think.
So the main idea here is, first of all, you are a mage type that gets shield block, which is just cool. So you get that for free. Also, which is one of my favorite parts of this, you can actually, instead of using an actual shield, you can use your spell book. Then you can block things with your spell book. And it's a whole build in here for it, and I think that's hilarious.
Right.
Now if you're in your Arcane Cascade with your shield raised, your circumstance bonus to your armor class to your shield also applies to your saving throws against spells and other magical effects, which is really cool. So this raises your AC that much more and raises your saving throws. And you know that in those mid-teen levels, your saving throws are either amazing or dirt. So anything you can add makes life easier.
Right.
The other thing, of course, to mention with this is, as Boris said, you eventually get the ability to block stuff, including like using a shield spell. And the conflict spell with this, you would be completely amazed that in the wording of it, it has the word shield in it, as it is called Shielding Strike. I know, again, you can probably take a wild guess about what it does.
Now, just an important thing to understand if you're thinking, well, what kind of hardness or hit points could a spellbook have? And it does give you a few feat that improves the hardness of a spellbook, but there is one feat that lets you put take a shield, any shield that you have, and put it into your spellbook as a bookmark, and you can either use the shield that you add as a bookmark, or your spellbook as the shield, and your spellbook has the characteristics of the shield that you put in. So you can put in a Adamantian shield into your spellbook, and it'll be just as hard, which is really impressive.
It makes no logistical sense, but we're playing a magical game, so magic. Number 4, the Starlit Span.
Yes. So the Starlit Span is your ranged person. So rather than using swords or melee weapons, you can utilize ranged weapons, even ranged unarmed strikes. But the important aspect is adding the spell strike is only within the first range increment. Otherwise, you can't do it.
Oh no, I use my longbow and I'm only allowed to spell strike up to 100 feet.
Hey, if you're using your unarmed strikes, it's only 30.
Oh no, I'm using my longbow and I'm only getting 100-foot range on my spell strike. Woe is me.
Yes.
And the conflict spell for that is called Shooting Star. It is what it is. Final one, Twisting Tree. You can probably guess what this one is based on.
It's based on the staff. Now, this is unique in a few ways, because it does let you do some really cute things with feats in the future. But one of the key aspects here is that you can use the staff with 1 or 2 hands, and it magically shifts the staff, giving it certain characteristics depending on whether you're using it as 1 or 2 hands. So if you're using it as 1 hand, it becomes Agile. Is it agile or?
Yep.
Yeah, it becomes agile, and damage is 1d6. While if you're wielding in both hands, it lengthens and twists, reshapes, gaining the parry, reach, and trip traits, which is makes you sort of a martial arts staff user.
Which is the reason why I thought you would love this.
I
Now,
prefer more of the
if you are in your
extra.
Arcane Cascade stance, you can interact or release to change your grip as you wish, including for your strikes made in your spell strike. This is, again, incredibly useful. And the Conflict spell, again, you can tell that it's based on the staff because it's called Spinning Staff. Now, the next thing, of course, that you would understand is that conflux spells are your focus spells. Focus spells work exactly the same way they do for every single other class. So you can only have up to 3 of them. You get a new one every time you get a new spell, and there's feats to make it so you can regain them faster, and all that fun stuff. Magus are still very much like all other regular spellcasters. They do not get a first level class feat. You start at second level with your class feats, again, just like all other spellcasters. Right. Everything else kind of stays the same for them as they do for everybody else, except you're martial in terms of your weapon buffs. Weapon expertise comes at level 5. Weapon specialization comes at level 7. But then you're also expert spellcaster at level 9. You're also a spellcaster that ends up gaining medium armor mastery. Yeah. Not medium armor expert. You get that at level 11, but you get medium armor mastery at level 17. And that is huge. You've got to realize that you get master spellcaster, you get juggernaut. So your proficiency in fortitude becomes a master. You get resolve, which means your will saves are a master. So your master in will, your master in fortitude, you're expert in perception, you're expert in reflex as your final spell saves. You are a master spellcaster, you are a weapon master, and you are a medium armor master.
Yep.
That is a fantastic overall character build, and that's the main aspect that you have to play with when you're playing a Magus. You are a melee character who happens to have the ability to cast some devastating spells, because again, you may be a melee character, but you have options to cast 9th level arcane spells. You don't get 10th, but you do get 9th. Now, the feats play pretty much the way you think they do for a lot of other characters. There's a bunch of feats that will be based on what build you go with, whether you go with the sword, whether you go with the two-handed sword, whether you go with the staff. There will be feats for that. There will be feats that are specific to every other spellcaster. The ones that will give you extra spell casting abilities, steady spellcaster, range spell, reach spell, all that stuff. Every character that gets focus spells, you'll have those. And of course, you'll also get feats that will make your spell strike different or more devastating.
Right.
So you still do have a lot of the same style choices as you do with most other character classes with your feats, which make it so, again, you are a very versatile overall character build, which, again, makes it so that this character is definitely something I would like to try when I have the opportunity to do so.
Yep. Now, I think going through the feats is just not within the scope. They have, it seems like way more feat because they have more of the hybrids than most other classes. But there's one feat I really want to point out, and it's at 14th level. It's the Arcane Shroud, which is very useful. Because of your limitation of your spells, anything that adds another spell-like abilities is really an up for the Magus.
That's
and
right.
And the 14th level feat, depending on what type of magic you use in your spell strike, gives you another spell ability. And I'll just read a couple of them. I won't go through all of them, but which I think are really good. For example, if you use Abjuration, you'll gain Stone Skin. If you use Evocation, you get Fire Shield. and if you use illusion, you become invisible, which is
All very
great.
useful
Yeah,
abilities.
all very useful, and really, I think at 14th level, that is the feat to take.
So the one thing I will say to kind of finish off the overall thoughts for this is, feat wise, one really kind of fun thing, and I think this gives a really good explanation, is at level, was it 6, you have several abilities that you can choose from. 2 of them at
Which
casting, and 1 of them is attack of opportunity. You are a spellcaster that can get attack of opportunity, and that is really that's what makes this class so hybrid and so interesting compared to a lot of others, especially saying that until now, you have not really had the ability to make a spellcaster attacker at all because of the way that the multi-classing and the abilities work, and the way that your archetypes and multi-classing works. It's almost impossible to make a spellcaster that attacks with melee weapons as well, or like what specializing in one and being at least decent at the other was not possible until now. This is the character that makes it possible.
Yeah, I agree. So, I mean, opinion-wise, I think the Magus is definitely a top-tier character class. One of the but just because for the mastery aspects of the character across the board, uh, and I really think you can have a really good mixture of abilities and useful skill set that adds value to any group.
I agree partially. There's a lot of fun things that you can do with this character. You are well balanced. However, in combat, Spell Strike makes it so you are very, very one-dimensional. The reason why I say that is because you have to use one of your actions at some point to re-up your Spell Strike, and you have to use 2 actions to cast your Spell Strike. So there's a good chance that what you're doing is literally, I Spell Strike, I re-up Spell Strike, and I'm done. And you may be doing that for several rounds, hoping that the enemies decide to run into your blade. So because of that, action economy tells me that this class might be kind of boring to play in some ways. That's my only issue with it, going into it without actually having tried it.
No,
So let us know your
that
opinion.
makes sense.
Let us know your opinion. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think it would be a lot of fun to play a Magus? I think it could be a lot of fun, but there's a lot of one-dimensionality to it. Either way, let us know your opinion. Let us know if you played the Ag Magus in previous editions. I've never actually gotten a chance to fully play it. I've built it several times, but usually my party couldn't use a Magus because they are very specialized.
Yeah.
So that should be everything from us. So like, subscribe, please hit the notification button. Tell us if you like some of these things, if you want to see a review of the whole book, because the book is, it is what it is. A lot of spells. Some of the spells might actually need some individual attention. Either way, let us know, and see you next time.
Bye.